السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. ما بعد. Inshallah, we'll be reciting the 29th juz today. 29th juz is, I believe it's the longest juz out of all the other ones. In the 15-line of Quran, most of the juz, or I think all of the juz, are 20 pages. But the 29th juz is 24 pages. I'm not sure how long the 30th juz is, but there's so many Bismillah Rahman Rahims written over there that it will be hard to calculate. Anyways, the first surah in this juz is Surah Mulk. Surah Mulk is also one of those surahs that every believer should have in their arsenal. I believe it was Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu who mentioned that he said that I wish that every believer would know this surah, referring to Surah Mulk. Why? Because in many traditions, many narrations, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been reported to have said that this surah is munjiyah or mani'ah. It is a protector or a preventer from the punishment of the grave. And a person who recites this every night, they shall be protected from the punishment of the grave. And when we think of the grave, we're reminded that it's a place of darkness, it's a place of loneliness, it's a place where no one will have any sort of help except that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed. And one of those helps is from Surah Mulk. So this is one of the reasons why we should make a habit of reciting Surah Mulk every single night. And to make it easier, we should memorize it so that it's easier to memorize. It's easier to recite on the go, wherever we are, on the way home from work, on the way back from Maghrib, or on the way back from Isha, or while laying in bed, getting ready to sleep. Next, inshallah, we'll look at a few ayat from Surah Qalam. Surah Qalam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when warning the people of Makkah, he says that إِنَّا بَلَوْنَاهُمْ كَمَا بَلَوْنَا أَصْحَابَ الْجَنَّةِ إِذْ أَقْسَمُوا لَيَصْرِمُنَّهَا مُصْبِحِينَ. That we will test them like how the people of the garden were tested. This is not, when you say Jannah, this is not referring to Jannah, of the hereafter. Jannah referring to the literal sense, the garden, right? Who are the people of the garden? Now, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he mentions in a lengthy narration the details of these people. So there was a pious father, and he had this land, not only a garden, it was an orchard and a lot of land with area for agriculture and crops and whatnot. And he had the habit of leaving a lot of the produce and things that would come from that garden and from those orchards, he would leave some of it for the poor. Right? So for example, when the fruits would come onto the trees, some of it was picked when it was ripe. Whatever would fall, he would leave it for the poor people. He wouldn't pick it up and try to sell that as well or make use of that. Similarly, when they would harvest, right, when they would separate the grain from the skin or from the chaff, right, he would leave that grain for the poor people. Then when this person passed away, he had sons. These sons, they as they were young, they thought that our father he's a foolish man, or he's too generous of a person. He gives out too much. Now that our families have grown, this is usually the excuse and the reasoning that now that inflation and the times are hard and we need more for ourselves. That's what they said. Times are tough, bigger family now, we need more. So that habit that our father had, that's over. We're done with that. We're going to try to collect everything before. But the poor people, because they were so used to this, they would always gather when it was time to pick the fruits or to take the grains, they would always gather because they knew that this person was a giving person and this area was a place that always was open to the poor and the needy. So what they decided, they made a plan. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions about their plan. إِذْ أَقْسَمُوا لَيَصْرِمُنَّهَا مُصْبِحِينَ. That they took an oath, they had a meeting, and then they decided that what we're going to do, early morning, musbihin, we're going to go, before any of the poor people come around, we're going to go and we're going to harvest and we're going to take everything. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا يَسْتَثْنُونَ. Right? And they did not make any exception, referring to, they did not say, inshaAllah. They thought that everything was up to them and to their will. Right? Other mufassirin mentioned that وَلَا يَسْتَثْنُونَ could refer to that they did not make any exception for the poor people. Regardless, this is what happened. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَطَافَ عَلَيْهَا طَائِفٌ مِّن رَبِّكَ. That a whirl of calamity came and attacked this or hit this orchard and this land, and while they were sleeping, وَهُمْ نَائِمُونَ فَأَصْبَحَتْ كَالصَّرِيمِ. And now it became like as if it was harvested, meaning it was all burnt and done. It was finished. فَتَنَادُوا مُصْبِحِينَ. They started to call one another in the morning. Started whispering to one another. أَنِ اغْدُوا عَلَىٰ حَرْثِكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَارِمِينَ فَانْطَلَقُوا وَهُمْ يَتَخَافَتُونَ. They started walking and they started whispering to each other, making sure that they don't say anything loud, or maybe some people will hear what their plan is. So they have this, this plan and this agenda, and they're quietly going towards this land. وَغَدَوْا عَلَىٰ حَرْدٍ قَادِرِينَ فَلَمَّا رَأُوهَا قَالُوا إِنَّا لَضَالُّونَ. When they get there, they get to the location, they're like, wait, I think we were lost, or we took the wrong turn. This is not our land. Right? This is not the place where all of our harvest is, because they see it's all burnt, it's all done. It's as if someone already harvested it. Their land wasn't harvested yet. They're like, إِنَّا لَضَالُّونَ. But then there was that one brother, one of the brothers, the middle brother. He was like the father. He was the generous type. He was the one who feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he knew, and he warned them that, if we are going to do this, if you do this and you go forward with this plan, right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to, He doesn't like miserliness. He doesn't like, people being cheap. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure from that. He had warned them. So He says, بَلْ نَحْنُ مَحْرُومٌ. Right? Rather, we have been deprived. No, we lost out. قَالَ أَوْسَطُهُمْ أَلَمْ أَقُلْ لَكُمْ لَوْلَا تُسَبِّحُونَ. Didn't I tell you? Didn't I tell you about this? قَالُوا سُبْحَانَ رَبِّنَا إِنَّا كُنَّا ظَالِمِينَ. That's when they realized, oh yeah, we messed up. What we did was wrong. فَأَقْبَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضِ يَتَلَاوَمُونَ. Then they started blaming one another. This is what happens. When a person does something wrong, instead of taking responsibility for the action, they start blaming someone else. Throw it on someone else. Right? Instead of taking the responsibility and accepting the mistake, they started blaming one another. Right? Interestingly, the Mufassirin mentioned over here that even though the middle brother, he was against the plan and he didn't support it, but because he went along with it and he didn't do anything to stop it, his portion was also destroyed. It's a reminder for us that when something wrong is happening, if we are in that same environment, if we are in that same situation, right, if we're in that same group and we don't step back, we don't avoid it, we don't try to stop it, then we'll also be affected by the punishment. This is why one of the rulings or one of the teachings that is reminded multiple times is Amr al-Ma'ruf and Nahi al-Munkar. That encouraging good, enjoining good, and stopping from evil. Right? This is something that is kind of shied upon, or it's kind of avoided in this day and age. But this is a reminder for us in this ayah. After that, then when they started blaming each other, and then they realized that it was too late. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَذَلِكَ الْعَذَابُ وَلَعَذَابُ الْآخِرَةِ أَكْبَرُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. This is how the punishment is. When it comes to giving, when it comes to the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we were talking about the Ansar yesterday, this is the contrast of that, the opposite of that. Where in some cases people are willing to give everything, And in others, people are holding back. Many times we have to remember that the stuff that we have, whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, it's not ours anyways. Whatever we're giving is not ours anyways. It doesn't belong to us, it's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the other reminder is that in this, what we see in this scenario, the person, when the people that are holding back, many times the reason of success is not because of us giving or because of our actions. It's because of the people that we're helping. It's the people that we're serving. Because of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is increasing us. Right? I'll end with this, there's a very famous restaurant chain. And when you see this restaurant chain, there's always a line outside. A crazy line. It's as if they're giving free food. So one scholar, he mentions about this. He says, when I found out about the owner had a habit, and he made this pledge that everything from his business, he will give a certain percentage in charity. And he stuck to that. And he said when the owner stuck to that, and they made that pledge, he said, I was sure that this business is going to boom. And if you see that business today, subhanAllah, multiple chains throughout the lands, and all of them have crazy lines as if they're giving free food. The business is booming, but the person is giving to the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's giving to the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he knows the more he gives, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala open our hearts for His sake. Ameen wa akhiru da'wana. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.